Hey everybody, it's Taylor with Boydston Grove, and today we're going to show you two different ways to make your own art canvases, and then we're going to show you a couple different fun ways to use them. As an artist, it seems that I am always in need of canvases, and when you go to these local big craft box stores, they're actually pretty affordable, only a couple bucks a piece. But if you want the really big ones or the studio style that are nice and thick, they get expensive and that can add up really quick. Plus, there's a lot of times where we're just not in the place to drop everything and run to the store for a canvas. So today we're going to show you two different techniques in building canvases on your own that are really affordable and you can make them any size you want. Let's get into it. Now, to cut the pieces for your canvas frame, you can use any saw you want, even a little handsaw will work fine. I decided since I have the table saw here and handy, I'll go ahead and use that and it'll make it a lot quicker. But since I am making cross cuts, I did put in a stop block to make sure that there's no kickback once I make the cuts. Now on a regular wrapped canvas, I'm going to go ahead and just use standard butt joints because it's going to be wrapped in canvas so you'll never see them. When you're doing your wrapped canvas and you're doing the butt joints, you want to make sure that this seam right here is nice and smooth. If you have it sitting up a little bit like that, then when you wrap the canvas over it, this is going to show through and you're going to see it. So just make sure that your joints are nice and smooth. Alright, and now that our basic frame is done, it's time to wrap it in canvas. There's no need to sand because number one, we're wrapping it in canvas, and number two, we got a little bit nicer pine from the store, so it's already pre-sanded so it's nice and smooth to the touch. Something that you really want to keep in mind if you're going to be making a larger frame, you want to make sure there's some supports in the middle and maybe even some corner supports, because once you start wrapping that canvas, it could potentially bow your wood and you don't want any sagging sides to your canvas. So if you're going to do a larger one, you definitely want to put some supports in the middle. But since ours is only like 16 by 12, I think we'll be all right. The canvas that I am using to wrap over my frames is nothing more than some painting tarps that I picked up at the local box store. These things are really affordable and they come really large, so you can use them for multiple canvases. Okay, now a couple of things you want to go over before you staple your canvas to your frame. You want to make sure that you cut plenty of extra so that it can have plenty to wrap all the way around your wood. Now everybody has their own technique for stapling the canvas to their frame. Mine, I always start at one end and then go to the opposite end and make sure that I pull it nice and tight. A good way to do that is make sure that when you're holding the canvas nice and tight that you push the stapler down in place. Now when it comes to the corners, I always like to wrap the canvas as I'm wrapping a present. I just hold it tight on the corner and then fold up this until it's nice and tight. And you get that nice tight look right there. Now of course I'm going to cut off all this excess before I actually staple it. That way there's not a bunch of canvas just bunched up right here. All right, and our wrapped canvas is finished. Took maybe 5 minutes to cut the wood and another 5 to 10 to wrap the canvas around it. So it's a really quick project. My scissors weren't working real well, as you could see, so I ended up going with a really sharp razor knife and cutting a lot closer to trim off that excess in the inside, and I was just really careful to not hit my front right there. If you're worried about the creases or that it's not completely tight, don't worry about it. Once you put that first coat of paint on this, it's going to tighten it up really nice. All right, now on to our second one. These little corner clamps are really cool and come in really handy when you're building these frames. I got mine in a set of 4 on Amazon. They were really affordable. I'll make sure to put a link to them in the comments down below. All right, so the wood putty on our wood frame is dry, so it's time for a quick sand and then we'll be finished. Now ideally, you would want to just clamp this up and let it dry. The wood glue will be plenty strong enough to hold it together, and that way you won't have to use nails at all. The disadvantage of nails is that if you wanted to use this wood canvas for maybe wood burning or something where people would actually see the wood, there's a chance that that wood putty would not come out the same color as the rest of the wood, and then you would see those nail holes. I'm going to paint mine, so I'm not really worried about it. Plus, I was really impatient, so I just wanted to nail it together real quick. But if you have the patience, just go ahead and clamp it and leave it for about 30-40 minutes, and it'll dry up nice and tight, and you won't have to use nails at all. All right, so we've built our 2 canvases. We have the stretched canvas, and then we also have a wooden canvas. So now I'm going to show you something that you can do with your wooden canvases to just make them a little bit more special and a little bit more interesting. Now, going around to thrift stores, secondhand shops, and yard sales, I tend to run into a lot of broken up instruments, just instruments that were practice instruments, a little on the cheaper side, and they got ruined at some point. When I find those instruments that are no longer playable, I pick them up for a couple bucks and then I tear them down because they make great painting and wood burning surfaces. It's just super unique. This was part of a violin that I picked up. It was actually the Walmart brand of violin. I think they're called First Act or something like that. The body was cracked pretty bad. It was beyond repair. So I went ahead and removed everything except for the back surface of this violin. Now when you're tearing apart these instruments, keep in mind they're just glued together, so they come apart pretty easily. So I just lightly tap around the edges and it starts coming apart. Then I sanded the surface. Now you don't have to sand the surface completely like this. I just really thought maybe I would wood burn this rather than paint it. If you're just going to paint it, then you just need to rough up the surface a little bit. You don't have to completely remove it. Now, in order to mount it to our canvas, we're going to need something to make it sit up off of the canvas a little bit. So I've just cut a little 1x1 piece of wood. I made sure to cut an angle on both ends of this wood to meet the contour of the inside of this violin back. So when I put it in there, it'll sit nice and flat. Now all I'm going to do is glue both of these and put something heavy just to hold it down, and that'll be plenty strong enough to hold this together. Alright, for my last suggestion of what you can do with these homemade canvases, I took another wooden canvas and I mounted another instrument to it, but this time afterwards, I took the actual cloth canvas and wrapped it over the whole thing. This way, I get kind of an impression of the instrument rather than the instrument itself. And when I paint the painting, I can paint it over the entire canvas and make the instrument part of the painting and gives it kind of a 3D effect. It's pretty cool. The thing you want to keep in mind if you try this technique is to make sure that when you start, you only staple one edge. Then use a hot glue gun to tightly glue the canvas cloth around your instrument. Make sure that you really get the detail of it so people can tell what it is. I've done it before without doing the hot glue gun and it just looks like a hot mess. So you want to make sure that you really get it in tight so that people can tell what's under the canvas. After you got it how you like it, go ahead and staple your other 3 sides and make sure they're nice and tight. And then there you have it, a really unique 3D canvas that you can make a really cool piece of art out of. If you want to see the full make of these, I have a video on how to make 3D art. Alright, and there you have it. 2 quick and easy ways to make your own art canvases. I actually prefer making mine over buying them because if you have a specific project that you're working on or a specific space that needs a certain size piece of art, you can customize it to fit that. So you can make these any shape you want or any size you want. I also prefer these thicker studio style edges. They're a little bit more expensive. That's why it's more economical for me to make them myself. I just think it looks a little bit more high-end. Now the material that I'm using on these is a little rougher than typical canvas, but I found that if you use a quick coat of primer on them, that it makes them much smoother and easier to paint on. Now, speaking of smooth surfaces to work on, these wood canvases are great. If you haven't tried painting on one of these yet, I highly recommend it. It is such a nice surface to work on. Now, as far as the extras we talked about putting on your canvases, I have an example here of one of the violin backs that I did. Here I just painted the canvas here, or the wooden canvas, and then wood burned the back of the violin. It came out really nice. And that's one thing I like about using these instruments. It's taking something that was discarded or broken and turning it into something new that someone else can enjoy. I've done it many times with the back of a guitar, so just think that you're not limited to one thing. You can use all different kinds of things on your canvases. And then we talked about wrapping the whole thing in canvas and then painting it. And this is by far my favorite idea. I've done this many times and I just love it every time. It takes a little bit more patience and a little bit more time to do it this way, but the end result is so unique and so just one of a kind. It's really worth it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it. If you want to see all our other videos, like the video where we show you how to make 3D art, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And we would love to hear what you thought of this project down in the comments below, or if you have any that you've made that you want to share with us, just leave them in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Be safe and have a great day.